Hello and welcome to Change Radio Political Trends Program. I am Javlani Mushyanga, your host for this program. Today we will be discussing about the political developments in our country with the National Executive Member of the MDC Alliance, Leader Kunashe Muchengwa. Leader Kunashe Muchengwa is in the National Executive of the MDC Alliance, led by President Nelson Chamisa. He represents Bulawayo Province. He hails from Bulawayo South constituency. I am Javlani Mushanga, your host. Leader Kunashe has been with the party, has been in the trenches to fight for democratic change, to fight for a new Zimbabwe for some time. He has been with the students' activism. He has been with the Youth Assembly of the MDC. Now he is in the main wing of the party. Comrade Kunashe Muchengwa, welcome to the program Political Trends. To begin with, Comrade Kunashe, you have been in the struggle for some time. You have been arrested several times. You know the terrain, the political terrain in Zimbabwe, in our country. What exactly, from your own perspective, needs to be done to allow political freedom for opposition parties, like our party, the MDC Alliance, seeing that the MDC Alliance, which is the biggest political party in Zimbabwe, is not being allowed to operate freely.
Thank you very much, Comrade. Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to talk to you on this platform, Change Radio. Thank you very much, Change Radio. I think what needs to be done in our country, Zimbabwe, in as far as the problems, the political problems that we are having, the leadership problems that we are having, that end up manifesting in an economic manner. What needs to be done is that we need to agree as Zimbabweans, first, that we have to build a nation. We need to agree that there is a country called Zimbabwe, which is simply defined by its borders around it. But that country, that state called Zimbabwe, has become a nationless state. It has become a nationless state since 1980. After independence, a country called Zimbabwe was born, but that country failed to transform itself into a nation. And this must be heard correctly and properly. So when you build a nation, when you now have a nation in a country, it means everyone in that particular nation, it doesn't matter whether that person is politically active or not. It doesn't matter whether that person belongs to the opposition or to the government of the day. What happens is that Zimbabwe comes first. That is when you have built a nation. So we need to agree that we need to build a nation. The nation called Zimbabwe is not there. We have got a nationless state. And how do you do that? How do you build a nation? You build a nation when you respect every citizen in that particular nation. You build a nation when you respect the rule of law. You build a nation when you allow the people in that particular country to choose leaders of their own choice. That can only be done in a democratically led country. You build a nation when you give independence to the different state institutions that are responsible for different duties. We have got the police service, it must be allowed to do its own duties. We have got the army, it must be allowed to do its own duties. We have got the executive, it must carry out its own duties. We have got the legislature, it must carry out its own duties. We have got the independent electoral body. That body must be allowed to be independent, not just by name, but by practice. So that is what needs to be done. If you address all those fundamental issues that I've mentioned and which affect our country as a whole, Zimbabwe, and which takes away, because of their deficiency, they take away the nationhood of our country, you will see that things will come into shape. You will see unity amongst Zimbabweans, because they will be able to identify Zimbabwe as their own motherland, not just by birth, but feeling belonging, that I'm respected and I feel that I'm part of this community. We've got people in Zimbabwe that are more Karanga than Zimbabwe itself. We've got people in our country that have become more Ndebele than Zimbabwe itself. We've got people in our country that have become more Zezuru than Zimbabwe itself. We've got people in our country that have become more Tonga than Zimbabwe itself. That on its own is not a good attitude from our people. But how do we prevent that? How do we avoid that? We must provide leadership. And where do we get that leadership? We must allow people to democratically elect leaders of their choice without interference. And this is exactly what our elders went to the liberation struggle for. That we want a country where human beings are going to be respected, not because of their race, not because of their economic status, not because of their social positions in their community, but because they are human beings and they are Zimbabweans, and they must be respected. And they also went to war because they wanted one man, one vote. And these are the issues that we must implement. And this is why we said that one of the agendas, and which is the reason why the MDC was formed, was also because they want to fulfill, they want to complete the agenda of the liberation struggle. We want to complete as a part the agenda, the unfinished business of the liberation struggle. So this is what we are coming here for. So coming into Zimbabwe now, what do we need to do? We simply need to do things rightly. We have got elections that were held in 2018. These elections produced a leader through the ballot. But after that election had produced the leader through the ballot, the bullet took over. People started being killed. I remember on the 1st of August in Harare, 1st of August 2018, people were killed. I remember in January 2019, when ZCTU has called a strike where people were demonstrating against the arbitrary increase of fuel prices, people were killed. And we can't live in such a community where people, all their freedoms have been taken away from them. So we need to retain people's freedoms, freedom of expression, freedom of association, even people in rural areas. This is where this thing is even worse. We see it on daily basis when it's done by state operatives in urban areas, but in rural areas it's even worse, where headmen segregate people that they are supposed to be leading on political lines. Not because they want to do that, these headmen. It's not because they want to do that, but they are told to do that. Where chiefs are told to discriminate and choose between people who belong to the opposition party and the ruling party. Not because they want to do that, but they are told to do that by the government of the day. They are told to do that by ZANU-PF. And this is not what we want. We can't build a nation on that basis. They are threatened that if you don't behave like that, we are going to take away the chieftainship from you. So they've got the right to give and take away chieftainship on individuals. We can't build a nation like that. So all that is what is taking this nation back from what it was. We've got issues that were done by the current regime, which is presiding over our country. There are people that were killed in Matabeleland between 1983 and 1987. More than 20,000 people were killed through a process called the Kukura Wind, and nothing has been done. And some people accept that those people will naturally live. It can't happen that way. So there are cosmetic processes that are being established by the perpetrator himself. We can't have a situation being done like that. We need an independent board that will investigate the process, that will interview and speak to the victims and find out what they think about it and what they think should be done themselves. People in Zimbabwe will clearly define what they want done as far as they are concerned. But what you need to do is you need to give them an opportunity to air out their views. So I think overall, the additional and multiplication effect of all this is that we've got a leadership crisis in our country. And because we have a leadership crisis in our country, that leadership crisis is manifesting now in the economic issues, where we've got the economy which is in its worst state ever since the country was established. That leadership crisis is manifesting in people being arrested on political lines. That is victimization, which is being done in a political manner. That leadership crisis that we have in our country is manifesting in innocent women being raped and maimed. That leadership crisis that we have in our country is manifesting in people being abducted during the day and during the night, and with nothing happening to the perpetrators. That is the crisis that we have in our country. So what we need to do is we need to establish an able leadership to preside over a country called Zimbabwe, and that able leadership can only be a leadership which is chosen by the people and which is for the people, which knows that they must consult people in whatever decision that they are making. I think with that in place, we can establish a country, a nation that we are all proud of, a Zimbabwe that we are all proud to belong to. I think that's what I would say as far as your question is concerned, comrade leader. Thank you very much for that.
We are live on Change Radio Political Trends program. Your host, Jabulani Mushanga. Today we are discussing political developments in our country, our motherland, Zimbabwe, with the leader Kunashe Muchemwa. Leader Kunashe Muchemwa, you have been the Secretary for Elections in the National Executive of the Youth Assembly. There is an issue of electoral reforms. We just want to hear your comment. The fight for reforms in Zimbabwe, as you know, that all the progressive forces in Zimbabwe and beyond, they are fighting for reforms, including institutional reforms, security sector reforms, media reforms, and electoral reforms. Can you just talk to us about the electoral reforms? What's your take, and how do you see this fight for reforms going forward?
So coming to electoral reforms now, electoral reforms are very fundamental. They are very, very important in such a manner that they are the ones that makes it possible for a party or a leader who has produced the majority votes to be sworn in and be allowed to form a government of the day. But these electoral results, these electoral reforms, are not only needed on the very day of conducting an election. They are needed right from years before an election is conducted. The rigging process by the regime, by the ruling party, is not a one-day event. It is a process which is carried over years. They do intimidation in rural areas, intimidating people to say, if you are going to vote for party X, we are going to deprive you of inputs when you are distributing inputs that are supposed to be distributed by the state amongst people. In the event of hunger, they are going to starve you from food that is needed by every human being to survive. So that on its own is a process of rigging elections, because we are forcing people to support a political party which they don't want if they have been given a choice. The covering of events through media, be it the TV or the print media, is a process that already rigs elections, because people every day will be reading stories that cover and favor one political party against the other, and that on its own does not produce a favorable outcome. We have got victimization of activists of a certain political party, which happens over a process. That on its own intimidates people from openly supporting a political party of their own choice, and that on its own is rigging. But most of the times, people look at rigging in a manner that they are concentrating on rigging, which is done by a political party on the very day of election. Of course, those are the final stages of rigging, and all that is what has been happening in our country. So we need to look into that, because if we don't do that, this country will remain in international isolation. This country will continue to chase away potential investors that are supposed to come into a country, because they know that the rules and laws in that particular country are set in a manner that favors a certain political party. They are not set considering the economic objectives of that particular nation. They don't look at the economic objectives. They look at political objectives. What is it that you want to do? If you are going to come into our country to invest, what is it that we are going to benefit as a political party, of which that is not supposed to be the case. We must be looking at the nation Zimbabwe in its totality. We don't have to be looking at a political party. When you become a government, you are administering a nation which is full of people that are coming from different political backgrounds, different religious backgrounds, and are supposed to be responsible for their own for their welfare. So as long as we don't have an independent electoral board which runs elections in a free, fair manner, as long as we have not achieved the political reforms that we have been clamoring for ever since the formation of our party in 1999 NDC, we are never going to allow that. Zimbabwe's developmental agenda will never be allowed to take place, because there is no shared vision between the governing party and those that are being governed, and that on its own slows down development. People don't have confidence in the administration of the day, because they know that the government which is presiding over them is not the government that they chose when they voted.
Yes, this is your host, Jabulani Mutyanga. It only happens here at Change Radio, the People's Radio. We are discussing political trends, the political developments in our country. with the leader Kunashe Muchengwa from Bulawayo South constituency, who is the national executive member of the MDC Alliance, the biggest political party in Zimbabwe. Comrade Muchengwa, looking at the recent the developments or disturbances at the Bedbridge border post, it is a manifestation of the bigger problem, the bigger crisis in Zimbabwe. We just want to hear your comments. What's your take on what happened at the Bedbridge border post and the response from the authorities in terms of trying to mitigate the situation?
Comrade Javlan, what happened at the border during the festive season and what is happening even now, the Bedbridge border in particular, is very unfortunate, because we lost lives that we were not supposed to live, to have lost. We lost breadwinners in families. The deaths that we experienced at the Bedbridge border and that we are still experiencing even now were avoidable. Those are very, very unfortunate and regrettable incidents that every normal human being should be seized with. But the problem, Comrade Javlani, is not what should have been done by those authorities that are manning that particular border. It's not about that. The problem is what caused that congestion. What is causing the congestion at Bedbridge border post? What is causing that disorder and thousands of people to be flocking in and out of South Africa and other regional countries? So that is a manifestation of a long problem that we have been nursing for quite a very long time. And regrettably so, it then resulted in other people losing their lives during the festive season. Lives that were never supposed to have lost. Some people are orphans now because of a problem that was created by human beings, not because of natural death, a situation that was totally avoidable. So we have got a situation where we've got a country called Zimbabwe, our beloved country, a country that we love so much, that cannot take care of its own citizens. And because of that, that is closed opportunities of every nature for people. So people are flocking out of the country, going out into neighboring countries in search of greener pastures, in search of job opportunities, in search of economic opportunities, even in search of education. People are flocking out of the country right now because the education, which used to be the best in the whole of Africa, is being destroyed every day. It is losing its value every day. And you witness that by even in the increasing number of even sons and daughters of ministers that are presiding over that country. Almost more than 90% of them are learning outside the country because they don't trust the very educational sector that they are administering of. So the problem is about what has led to that. What has led to that is that we have got an administration in Zimbabwe which it came into existence, or which is administering a country not because they were chosen by the people, but because they rigged their way into forming a government of the day. So because of that, they remain illegitimate even to a person selling tomatoes in Mbare and to a person selling tomatoes in Makokova. That government remain illegitimate. They remain illegitimate to a person selling vegetables in Sizinda. they remain illegitimate. They remain illegitimate even to a person in the far part of the country in Binga. They remain illegitimate even to a person in the rural area of Chipinge or in Chile. So they are illegitimate. So when a government is imposed on people, people lose faith in that administration. They can't support it. They can't support it even economically. When I sell my tomatoes over a week, if I'm selling tomatoes, or on daily basis, the safest area or platform where I must put my savings that I'm making through my business that I'm doing of selling tomatoes must be a bank. But banks in Zimbabwe become the worst enemies of citizens of our beloved nation. We can't have a situation like that. So it doesn't matter how much support you can get international or wherever you want to get it, as long as the citizens of that particular nation have no confidence in the processes or in the government of the particular of the day. There's nothing that you can do. There's nothing that you can do. So because of that, people end up leaving the country. They are risking their lives crossing the river full of water in the way there are crocodiles, because they are running from another crocodile in Zimbabwe and getting into the waters that are infested by other crocodiles in form of proper animals, being crocodiles themselves. So this is the situation that we have. So that situation could easily have been avoided if we have got an administration that is licensed, that respects the wishes and aspirations of the people, that runs elections in a proper manner, where the winner is declared the winner, where the ballot wins over the bullet. But we are having vice versa. That is what is happening in our country. Because of that, the border will always be congested. But it's a very big reminder to the neighboring countries, South Africa and the rest of SADC region, that the Zimbabwean problem that we have is no longer a Zimbabwean problem alone. It's now a regional problem. It has become an international issue. We have to unite. These SADC region countries must unite and fight this animal called ZANU-PF, which has imposed itself as the government of the day. They lost the elections in 2008. They were outsmarted by the president of the MDC-aligned advocate Nelson Chamisa. He garnered more than 2.6 million votes against this Emerson Mnangagwa, around 2.1 million votes. But they rigged their way and found their way into State House. And through using the state apparatus, using the electoral board, where they appoint judges, where they appoint those ZEC officials that are administering over it. So because of that, this is what happens. No one has got confidence in it. Even those administering the state has no confidence in their own administration. So this is what we are having. So these problems will continue manifesting themselves in that fashion, as long as we have got an administration which is not favorable to people that are to citizens of that particular nation.
Yes. Comrade Kunashe, just your comment on the COVID-19 pandemic and the lockdown, also on the restrictions that the regime has put on people. What's your comment, Comrade Kunashe, on that?
Comrade Jawlan, faced by a deadly pandemic in the form of COVID-19, lockdowns and movement restrictions are unavoidable in any community. In a bid to save life, there are restrictions that must be put in place. there are lockdowns that must be put in place. That we have no question on that. But the authorities or the regime must be sincere in putting these lockdowns. They must be sincere. Unfortunately, they don't have that word sincerity appearing in their vocabulary. But they must be sincere. The government of the day must be sincere in these lockdowns. The lockdowns, the unfortunate part in Zimbabwe is that the lockdowns in Zimbabwe are being put to pursue a political agenda. They are not being put in place with the intention of saving lives. And very, very unfortunate on that. Very unfortunate on that. The agenda is not to save lives. The agenda is to pursue a political agenda. A political agenda because they know that Zimbabweans are still very bitter that they voted in 2018 for MDC Alliance as led by none other than Advocate Nelson Chamisa as their president. And because of that, the ZANU-PF regime knows that this bitterness can manifest in demonstrations as supported by Section 59 of the Constitution of Zimbabwe. They know that. So because of that, they have chosen to take advantage of COVID-19 and lock people in their own houses without suppressing them, their freedom of movement, freedom of grouping or association, by locking them down so that they can't meet, they can't group. But their agenda is nothing other than the political agenda. So because why am I saying so? We have got incidents of people that were allowed to meet for a political program in December when COVID-19 was at its peak in December. A gathering that was supposed to be for almost 6,000 people was sanctioned by the Zimbabwean government. If they were able to have the numbers, it was supposed to be of 6,000 people, though they only gathered just around 1,000 people according to the figures that they announced. I'm talking of the extraordinary Congress, which Thokozani Kupe and Douglas Monzora held in December. That was a very big, that was supposed to be a very big gathering that had got a potential of transmitting, further spreading the disease from one person to another. If the government was sincere about putting these lockdown measures with the intention of saving lives, they were never supposed to allow such an activity to happen, such an event to happen. But they allowed it. Why? Because these are their proxies that they are pushing with the intention of fighting the people's agenda. Very, 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 very unfortunate. We have had incidents of Emerson Mnangagwa gathering people, even recently during the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic. In Chivi, there he held a very big rally where he was officiating at the launch of what they call a TEP. Very unfortunate. That incident could have spread, or it spread a lot of disease, that disease from one person to another. Because this disease requires that we exercise social distancing. So when you gather a large number of people like that, because it is you who wants to benefit in that particular process, you forget about saving human lives. So it doesn't work that way. So the administration has fallen short as far as dealing with this pandemic is concerned. They have received a lot of assistance from the World Health Organization, and this money has been stolen. This money went missing. People that reported that there's a minister who is stealing money. There are people that are very close to the president of ZANU-PF who are stealing money. Those, instead of arresting those people that are exercising this corruption, those that were reporting these unfortunate events were arrested. I'm talking of Wopo Chimon. I'm talking of a lot of people that were arrested because of reporting corruption which the government of the day is exercising. So it's very, very unfortunate that the government is not sincere. There was a time when it just locked down people unnecessarily without any scientific statistics that would have supported a lockdown, but because they knew that MDC Alliance, as led by Nelson Chamisa, had a program where they want to embark on meeting people in the rural areas, constituents by constituents, ward by ward, doing consultations throughout the whole country as in terms of the way forward of what we should do, faced by the problems that we are faced with as a political party, the problems that we are faced with as a nation. Because remember, we are not just an opposition, we are an alternative. An alternative government. An alternative government, one of its duties is to profile possible solutions, even to the dictator himself. We have given proposals every time through the platforms that we get an opportunity, through parliament, through councils. Every time we give proposals in terms of what should be done economically, what should be done in terms of the currencies that the country must adopt. Our proposals are well known. Unfortunately, they fell on deaf ears. The regime does not listen. Listening is not one of their attributes. They don't take anything that does not favor them politically. They view everything with a political eye. So that is the problem that we have, and very unfortunate. Everything is now being politicized in a country. This is why I spoke about this country becoming a nationless state, where everything is fueled in a political manner, where there's segregation of which political party you belong to. So because of that, we are just unable to deal with the pandemic. People are dying, hospitals are understaffed, there's no support which is given to the frontline workers. Teachers' lives are being risked where they are forced to administer or invigilate over examinations without enough protective clothing. Nurses are working in hospitals without enough protective clothes. Forget about them being underpaid and the morale being at its lowest. So we just can't deal with this pandemic. Only God should help us, because the administration which is administering over this, it cannot, just has no capacity to deal with. So it's very, very unfortunate.
Yebo, yes. This is a Change Radio with your host, Jawlan Musanga, on Change Radio, the People's Radio. We are discussing political developments in our motherland, Zimbabwe. We are discussing with a leader, Kunashe Muchemwa, who is the national executive member of the MDC Alliance. Comrade Muchemwa, Zimbabweans might be feeling that the MDC Alliance has been defeated in this war. What assurance can you give to the people that the People's President, Advocate Nelson Chamisa, will rule this country, considering that ZANU-PF has recalled MDC Alliance councillors, MPs, senators, and mayors? What assurance can you give to the people of Zimbabwe, a message of hope to the people of Zimbabwe?
Comrade Javlan, in fact, the people of Zimbabwe, they have got confidence in the able and capable leadership of Advocate Nelson Chamisa, and they have shown that on several occasions, and in a very big way. They showed that in 2018 July elections, by voting in their millions for President Advocate Nelson Chamisa. more than 2 million people voted for President Advocate Nelson Chamisa. That is a serious and big show of confidence in our party MDC alliance. We've never gotten such a big number, even during the time of the iconic founding president, Dr. Morgan Richard Tsvangirai. We never surpassed the 2 million votes. And the other thing which gives people confidence is that for the first time, we've got a high number of young people that have taken up upon themselves to become politically active, to participate in electoral processes, right from becoming candidates and becoming activists, and just by participating by way of voting. They've got confidence in the leadership of MDC Alliance is led by Advocate Nelson Chamisa, because it is inclusive. It doesn't select or segregate on age. It doesn't select or segregate on background, on color, or on sex. Because they've got such an administration, they are very, very, very active. What has been lacking previously, before, even in the MDC itself, is that the number of young people that are willing to participate in the political process has been dwindling. But of late, the number of young people has been increasing. Young people in Zimbabwe have woken up. Young people in Zimbabwe have seen the light. They have seen that none other themselves can liberate themselves. We are faced with a situation in our country where it requires all young and able-bodied people to unite, even across political lines, because ZANU-PF has become an enemy not only of MDC but of Zimbabwe itself, an enemy of everyone. We have got innocent people that died in this country, that were shot by live ammunition in this country, not because they were politically active or they were in favor of MDC. It doesn't matter. So Zimbabweans now know whether you belong to MDC or not, you are going to be you are going to be killed one way or the other. So what is the best way? The best way is to unite as Zimbabweans and make sure that we fight this authoritarian system. We fight this autocratic and ruthless regime. In our numbers, united as we are, we can defeat anything. Without any ammunition, we don't need to carry any ammunition. If we are united, we will defeat the system. I can tell you that the army, the general and generality of army, of members in the army, the generality number of people in the police sector, the generality number of people in the CIO, I'm talking about the majority of people, they do not support this regime. They know that this regime is killing the future of their own children. They know it. They know it. They just can't help it. They are waiting for us to assist them. So if Zimbabweans are given an opportunity to organize themselves and go into the street in their thousands, in their millions, this regime will succumb to pressure. One thing that will make it succumb to pressure is that the security forces themselves are the ones that are going to start turning their back against the regime first. But what they need is the support of numbers. They need the support of the generality of Zimbabweans. And when they get that, this regime will not leave the day. This regime will not leave the day. And the state knows that. The state knows that the President Chamisa has got the capacity to mobilize these thousands of people. The state knows that President Chamisa is a man of action. The state knows it. The state knows. He has demonstrated it in peaceful ways through several occasions. The state knows it. And when the momentum was picking up, they started arresting leaders of the opposition parties. They started arresting leaders from the civic society organizations, anyone who was voicing against the regime, anyone who was pushing the agenda that we must rise up and demonstrate and exercise our constitutional rights as enshrined in Section 59 of our Zimbabwean Constitution. They started arresting and victimizing them. The state knows it, but no amount of victimization can stop an agenda whose time has come. President Nelson Chamisa is pushing an agenda whose time has come, and Zimbabweans are ready to be led by him. Zimbabweans are ready to follow the signal which is being led by none other than Advocate Nelson Chamisa. Zimbabweans know their party, that their party is called MDC Alliance. Zimbabweans know their leader is MDC Alliance leaders is elected in 2019 Ascot in Bear. They know their leaders. Even if MDC Alliance was going to change their party today to call it a tree, they know their leaders. Zimbabweans know their party, not by name, but by behavior. Zimbabweans know their party. When they meet their party, they know it. When they see their leaders, they know them. So Zimbabweans have got to hope. I have no doubt about that. This pandemic will not last forever. Very soon people will be allowed to move in the street, and as soon as they are allowed to move in the street, Zimbabweans will mobilize themselves. Zimbabweans will mobilize themselves because they know that without that there is nothing that is left for them. So they are going to mobilize themselves naturally, and the President Chamisa will provide leadership.
Oh, indeed. This is Change Radio, the People's Radio. I am Yawlani Mutyanga, your host. We were discussing political developments in our country, our motherland, Zimbabwe, with the National Executive Member for the MDC Alliance, Comrade Kunashe Muchemwa, all the way from Bulawayo South constituency. Comrade Muchemwa, your parting words, any words of encouragement to the young people, to the women of Zimbabwe, to progressive citizens of Zimbabwe?
Comrade Jabulani, in conclusion, I will conclude by a very strong saying from one of the luminaries of the liberation struggle of our country, the late leader Joshua Ngomo, Father Zimbabwe, said that the Zimbabwean idea or the Zimbabwean agenda will not die. Why? Because the young people were rescued. So this is the time that the young people must live and practice these wise words that came from one of the liberation icons, Father Zimbabwe. We have to rescue this country. Young people have got a responsibility of rescuing this country. We have reached a time where Zimbabweans must unite across political parties and face one thing, one reality, that our country is in a political mess. Our country is in an economic mess. Our country is in a social mess. Social mess because even families are being destroyed because of the political and economic problems that we have in our country. So because of this, Zimbabweans, we must unite. We must unite and put order in our country. We must unite and demand independence to institutions that are running this country. We must unite. We must unite. You must unite for the good of our country. We must unite to fight corruption. Corruption is one of the biggest enemies of our country. We have got people that are looting minerals from our country. We have got people that are looting from state institutions, and there's nothing happening to them. So we have to unite. We have to unite as Zimbabweans. We have no choice other than uniting. And I'm happy that a lot of young people, even in ZANU-PF, have seen that in ZANU-PF, you are as good as you serve their purpose. Once you look like you are seeing the light, or once they decide or they think that you are no longer that valuable to them, you become a victim. We've seen that. A lot of young people have been victimized before. So I call upon all these people across political parties that we have to unite and put a full stop to this mess. We have no choice, in fact. We have no choice. We can't allow this regime to continue to destroy the educational sector that we have. We can't allow this regime to continue to destroy the health sector in the manner that they are doing. We can't allow our people to die because there is no medication that is found in our hospitals. The staff working there is very much is not encouraged at all. We can't allow our security service sector, members serving in the security sector, to continue to be victimized. We have to liberate them as well. They are looking for that liberation. They don't want it. I can tell you that majority of the people in the army, security, all the security sectors, they don't like it. Only the top brass is the one which is working together in an agreement with what the regime is doing. But the majority of them do not like it. So we have to unite ourselves. We have to unite and fight and put order in our country. Thank you very much for your time. Have a blessed day and time.